Hello and welcome to Chess with Simon. I'm Simon. Today we are going to look at a game by Mr. Nicholas Burrows. Actually, today we've already done one video. We did a banter rapid where I played the King's Gambit, which was a lot of fun. We're also going to look at this game by Mr. Nicholas Burrows. He is a very good player. We have featured him regularly on the site. He's white. It's a bullet game. It's a really good bullet game. Pawn to b3. White's idea is to place the bishop on that beautiful long diagonal. This move has become very popular these days, particularly I think in short time controls. d5 has to be a good move, fighting for control of the e4 square, allowing the queen's bishop out, controlling the centre, doing lots of good things. Bishop b2 feels very natural under the circumstances. That was the plan. Pawn c5 by black, so sort of playing in the spirit of a reversed opening. So in a sense now white might be playing a reversed Queen's Indian. c5 is a very normal follow-up to d5. It's quite principled. Knight f3 from Nick, so you could have played e3 in that position. Let's go back. Yeah, it's actually the most common move, but has... Well, knight f3 is slightly more likely to lead to decisive games, but e3 is by far the most common move. I suppose because some players want to leave open the option of playing f4. I mean, this was a bullet game, but still. Knight c6, very natural, right? Just putting the knight behind those pawns. Not yet threatening to play e5, although if it were with colours reversed, white would be threatening to play e4, because white would be a tempo ahead. e3 from Nick, which taking some control of d4, possibly thinking about the bishop going to b5. I've just looked ahead and it does go to b5. Black naturally develops the king's knight. I mean, that's got to be a good move. Pinning that knight, so what that means is it's definitely stopping e5, and at some point it may even be threatening white playing knight to e5. So black pins the knight. White forces it to decide. The bishop goes back, and then white's taken on c6. I mean, what could happen here is g4, and then the bishop moving back, and then, in fact, what we see is this is actually the most common sequence: knight g6, and then knight e5. I mean, that would make some sense. Instead, Nick's just taken. Which again is a good move. I mean, white's better here, which is impressive. You know, white's better in a kind of novel position. And actually, white's position's very harmonious. Black has these weak pawns, which are typical of the Nimzo-Indian, or also you get them in the Rossolimo, Sicilian Rossolimo. And white has a nice harmonious position. I assume the king's going to the king's side. Pawn d3. e6 is a natural move. e5 has basically been stopped, so e6 is a natural move. You get the same thing in the Nimzo-Indian with white. Developing the knight is a good move, and it's the engine move. Black develops the bishop. Now, the engine's not so keen on this. For this reason, g4, bishop g6. Now the engine wants h4. Nick played the equally good, well, it's not equally good in terms of valuation, but it's a good move. Knight e5 is a good move, and it's got an idea behind it, and the idea is just to cement control of that e5 square, and I think probably follow up with moves like f4 would be my guess, just to gain space on the king's side and, you know, start a pawn storm even. So black fights for control of the e5 square and attacks the knight. White defends, so now taking that knight with the bishop isn't a particularly good move. And black castles into it, as they say in the trade. I mean, you know, would I have done that? Well, the problem is black can't really castle on the queen's side because it's very... there's a lot of holes on the queen's side. There's a file, there's double pawns. The king could have stayed in the centre, but that is castling into it. Engine wants queen f3, Nick plays queen e2. Both of those moves allow you to castle queenside, which would make sense if you were pawn storming on the king's side. Black keeps fighting for the e5 square, which is actually thematic in this opening. I mean, these are both good players. I mean, the minute you play pawn to b3, or indeed pawn f4 as a first move, it's really about, it's not just about, but it's partly about control of the e5 square. And that's what black is thematically fighting for, although it's important to say that white is now quite a bit better according to the engine. Feeds that knight through, again, consistently fighting for e5. The engine actually wants white to take on d7, castle long, and then just, I suppose, just attack on the king side, pawn h4, that kind of stuff. But Nick's playing with his pieces, and he's just, you know, continuing to control e5. Black perhaps tries to get rid of that weak pawn, perhaps tries to open a file, perhaps to discourage white from castling. Nick plays the engine move and now is a lot better. Pawn f6 is understandable to stop that bishop getting trapped, but, you know, it does allow white to take on g6, and all of that effort fighting for the square was well spent because it allows you to create a weakness. You get the same thing in the Caracan knights. This is quite common for black to have to move pawns around the king to stop the bishop getting trapped, and then allow white to take and create this weak pawn on g6. So white's just better here. Long castle. This is brave. Would I have done this? Who knows? I mean, I'm not as good at chess as Nick, but would I have done this? You can do it. It's double-edged, though, because what comes is a4, which is the engine move. White plays h5. It's just a straight race now. Black takes. Nick's probably seen all of this. White takes. Black takes. And can you see the mate? I mean, we've got the engine up, right? So this is the curse of the engine. But as Nick rightly said to me, it feels great to play this move. It's a classic move. Rook h8 check. The king absolutely has to take it. The game stopped here because these players are good enough to know that this is winning. So the point is that when the king takes it, you got the queen check. King comes here. Queen h7 is checkmate. Of course, if it were me and I was feeling sadistic, you can play rook h1, king, you can sack the rook as well, you know. I mean, it's meaningless, but, you know, chess is all about fun, right? And sadism. There we go. Fantastic game from Nick. Thank you so much for sharing, Nick. And I think we learnt a lot from it. I think it's definitely worth giving 1b3 a go in your own games. It's a good opening. And, yeah, it's an interesting balance of sort of harmony, also with a lot of attacking chances. I think Adiban has a Chessable course on it, doesn't he? I've done the short version. And Nick could do his own Chessable course. Hope you're all well. See you soon.